watch the movie Jaws and think to yourself, there's no way I could be eaten by a great white. I have a better shot at being struck by lightning. But do you? Do you really? You know, when Peter Benchley wrote his novel that the movie was based on, it was about true life events that happened right here in New Jersey. In fact, there were a series of 5 shark attacks in the summer of 1916 that rocked the Jersey coast from Beach Haven all the way to the sleepy little town of Matawan, New Jersey. And that's what we're going to be bringing you today, is the story of the Matawan Maneater. I'm Lesley Schierenbeck, the History Chick. Stay tuned. It was known as the Summer of Blood. In July of 1916, the Jersey shore was in a state of hysteria as 5 shark attacks occurred in various beach resorts, ending in the sleepy little town of Matawan along the Jersey coast. It began with an unsuspecting 25-year-old. Charles Van Sant had arrived from Philadelphia and was staying at the Ingleside Hotel in Beach Haven. When out for an evening swim, Van Sant was seen playing with a local dog. At first, the bathers ignored his screams for help, as they thought that they were a part of the game. His leg, instead, had been torn from the thigh to the knee, causing massive amounts of blood loss and the ocean to turn red. Although every attempt to save his life was made, he bled to death on the hotel desk. Consider it a fluke of circumstance, peoples resumed their summer festivities in Jersey along the coast until a few days later, in Spring Lake, tragedy strikes again. On July 6, 1916, what would become known as the Matawan Maneater claimed its second victim, and that was of a young 28-year-old bell captain at the Sussex and Essex Hotel here in Spring Lake, New Jersey, Charles Bruder. Now, Bruder actually was swimming on the beach on the coast off of Spring Lake when he was attacked by the shark. Bruder actually swam out 100 yards past these ropes, and the ropes were actually put into place on beaches so that people could do something when they went to the beach called fanny dunking. So you would swim out, grab onto the rope, and then be able to dunk your body into the cool Atlantic Ocean. Bruder, because he was an experienced swimmer, he was a captain in the Swiss Army, he was originally from Switzerland, decided that he was going to go out a little bit past that rope for an evening swim. In doing so, the shark attacks, bites off both of his legs, and Bruder actually dies on the beach from shock as well as from blood loss. The lifeguards that actually were able to get to Bruder after he was attacked were in so much shock at seeing the carnage of the shark attack that they actually paused for a minute before they were able to get him onto the boat and quickly rush him back to shore. Next up, we're going to take a look at where the Matawan Maneater makes his final attack. It was here on July 12, 1916 that the Matawan Maneater would take his 2 final victims. We're on the banks of the Matawan Creek, which is a brackish body of water, which means that the water is a combination of both salt and fresh. Even though Thomas Cottrell, a local citizen, warned the people of Matawan that he thought he saw a shark off of the banks of the river on that hot summer day, people thought it was crazy and outlandish that a shark could actually swim up this creek and that it wouldn't be swimming around in an ocean. So the first tragedy strikes when teen boys decide it's July, it's hot, they want to go for a swim, and Lester Stillwell and a group of his friends decide to jump off of the trestle. In doing so, they swim around, they're paddling, and just as Lester is about to get out of the water, he feels something grab his leg. His friends notice a fin in the water, and they run out of the water, almost half nude, down into the main street of Matawan, where they are able to wrangle up the townspeople to come and help Lester. Now, one of the first people to jump to his aid is W. Stanley Fisher, who is a local tailor in his 20s, who actually dives into the creek in an attempt to save Lester Stillwell. In doing so, the shark actually bites him, and he will later die of his trauma due to a severed artery at a local hospital. And of course, the fate of Lester Stillwell, as we know, he perishes from his wounds as well. His body is not recovered until that Friday. Despite the futile efforts of Fisher that ultimately cost him his life, Lester Stillwell perished in that 1916 attack. And it wasn't until 2 days later that Stillwell's body was recovered from the Matawan Creek. It was then brought to a local funeral home where both Stillwell and Fisher had processions just a few days from each other, and are both interred here, ironically enough, close enough to each other, almost as Fisher overlooks Stillwell at Rose Hill Cemetery in Matawan. Even though it was a tragic story, it is one of community and one of greater understanding. As you can see, the grave of Lester Stillwell is still decorated by citizens of Matawan to this day, and the town commemorates the 1916 shark attacks by memorializing Fisher, who throughout his heroic attempts definitely sprung to the aid of the community and tried to help save the life of 11-year-old Lester Stillwell. After the attacks of Stillwell and Fisher, the town of Matawan fights back. And so what they decide to do is they decide to take it into their own hands by stringing a rope across the Matawan Creek with a large hook and a piece of meat on it, because they believed, after listening to some local scientists, that sharks returned to the scene of their killing 48 hours later. That effort was futile. Then they actually were hiring fishermen or anybody that they could that would be able to capture and kill a shark and bring it in for a financial reward. That also didn't work. And it wasn't until a few days later that actually a random man by the name of Michael Schlesser, who was fishing out in the Raritan Bay. Side note, he was an amateur taxidermist as well as a ringleader for the Barnum and Bailey Circus. Doesn't get much crazier than that. Pulls in an 8-foot great white shark, and the shark almost destroys his boat. He actually has to kill it with an oar, smash it over its head in order to get it onto his vessel. When he does, he brings the shark ashore. He has scientists cut it open, and inside they find over 15 pounds of human flesh, which they believe was the remains of some of the victims of the Matawan man-eater, and therefore they had kind of laid the story to rest. Or had they? Reality is, we're not sure if a great white would actually really swim up the creek here because of brackish water. In fact, they think it might have been a bull shark that did it, that was still somewhere out on the loose. The reality is, we'll never know, but it gives much credence to the reason why sharks become famous in popular culture today, while movies and books highlight the Matawan man-eater of 1916, why there's a Shark Week, and why it becomes something that we're still all terrified of when swimming in those dark waters. I'm Lesley Schierenbeck, the History Chick. Thanks for watching this week's episode. Stay tuned for next time.
Here, the lighting's good.
Killing these swimmers in the ocean that, no, I don't like that.
Would you rather have your leg eaten off by a crocodile or a shark?
Shark. Crocodiles and alligators do that death roll, and
we're going straight to hell on this one. Okay.